It's surprising it took this long for Kirby to transition to the third dimension. I'm just gonna say it here, Kirby in the Forgotten Land is one of the best Kirby games of all time. Even though the platforming is still pretty vanilla for a 3D platformer, they still added a lot of interesting gameplay features, so it was still a new and refreshing experience for a more experienced player, which is most likely most of my viewers. So here's a basic rundown of the story. Basically, Kirby is just having a normal day on planet Popstar, and then boom! A vortex appears in the sky, sucking up the Waddle Dees and Kirby. Kirby and the Waddle Dees are transported to a forgotten land with ancient ruins, and Kirby has to save the Waddle Dees. Pretty self-explanatory story, but it does give you a reason to explore the levels because you need to find all the Waddle Dees in each level to get 100%. And even with the non-completionist viewpoint, it's even fun to still explore the levels. That's the great thing about this game. I went back in certain levels 2 or even 3 times just to find all the Waddle Dees because I enjoyed exploring the levels. It wasn't a chore to find them all, but I do have to agree that in some later levels it does get a little tricky to find all the Waddle Dees, like having to take no damage in a boss fight. There's also little miniatures you can find throughout the levels. These are okay to find. You do have to collect all of them to get 100%, which I did. It just got a little tedious at the end to do so. Kirby also has a new ability. Alongside the standard copy ability, they introduce Mouthful Mode, which allows you to inhale cars, traffic cones, and other random objects and use them. I overall very like this feature. The car ability is pretty cool, being able to drive around certain levels, and the traffic cone being able to basically ground pound is useful also. There's even one Mouthful Mode ability where Kirby can suck up a bunch of water and basically turn into a water balloon, which was very hilarious when I first saw it, but it's also useful because you can clear muck and other obstacles in the level. And this is why I like Kirby and the Forgotten Lands gameplay. It's really good and they're able to add some interesting features. They even add the feature of upgrading copy abilities, which is pretty cool in my opinion because you can make a pretty mediocre copy ability at the start overpowered by the end of the game, which wants to make you explore the levels even more to find the blueprints to be able to upgrade the abilities and play the mini games to get the rare stones to be able to purchase the upgraded copy abilities. Speaking of the mini games are okay. Basically, they're scattered through multiple worlds, and there's a time limit for them. So, for example, you have to complete one for like 2 minutes, 1 minute, a minute and 30 seconds, so on and so forth. And they use a certain copy ability. So, for example, like the fire ability, the tornado ability, the water ability, etc. These are okay. Some of them can get kind of stupid hard for no reason in the later levels. But luckily, it's not a requirement to complete the game 100%, which is nice. So let's move on to the atmosphere of the levels. Overall, Kirby in the Forgotten Land has a weird vibe to it. It's a post-apocalyptic game, but it's not dark and depressing. It's still cutesy, which is kind of weird, but it works. Each of the 7 worlds do have a unique theme to them. Like the first world where it's an abandoned city, the second world where it's an ocean with like oil rigs and stuff, and so on and so forth. Overall, they did very well with theming the levels, where there's interesting to explore and look through as well. So, is there any after game content once you complete these 7 worlds? Yes. There is a boss run mode that you can go through, which is pretty enjoyable to go through all the boss modes, and is a requirement to do 100%. I like to note that I also 100% completed this game, so that's why I'm mentioning that. But if you want to skip running through all the bosses and go through all the levels again, there's the Forgotten Isles. These are basically harder versions and slightly longer versions of each of the 7 worlds. So it's a nice little addition if you want to run through each of the worlds if you felt like you weren't challenged enough when you went through them originally. There's also 300 new collectibles to replace the Waddle Dees, which is nice, so it doesn't feel like you're tracking through the same levels over again, and you can find new items to look for throughout them. Overall, I've said what I wanted to say about Kirby the Forgotten Land. Pick it up if you want another good platforming game for your Nintendo Switch. This is Joey, and bye. Bye.